the scratch race. There's no points along the route, points only coming at the finish line. So a straight up scratch race. And I'm looking forward to seeing which tactics and how the teams play this one. For those, as you just mentioned, Matt, were at that halfway point. Those teams who perhaps have a little bit of ground to make up, are they going to start to take some risks in order to try and move themselves up in those series standings? So I'm looking forward to this one on Suki's playground.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a little bit of something for everybody today. We'll do a deep dive into the course in just a few moments' time. But as we are at this point of the race, it's also very important to mention that the Zwift Grand Prix we have the Zwift Racing League on Tuesday, where thousands of members of the community leagues will be racing on this very same course, very same format, very same set of power-ups as well. And it has been wonderful over the last couple of weeks for rounds 3 and 4 for the community riders to see the best riders in the world on this very platform and learn from them as well. And I think it's worth mentioning as well, we wouldn't have had this the elite Zwift racing had it not been for the communities and the double TRL in the first place. So without further ado, let's have a look at what exactly is on the menu today. Certainly not 368 Ks. That would be a very long evening for everybody here, including me and Hannah. It is 36 point. It would be very interesting, and maybe that's something on the cards for next season. You never know, but there's the profile, Hannah, and 3 very familiar power-ups as well. The classic OG power-ups, featherweight, draft, and aero.
It certainly is. I feel like we're going back 4 or 5 years, back to the 3 prime power-ups that we would always have within races. We got 4 opportunities for the riders to get a power-up, and at each of those arches there is a probability, a percentage of which power-ups they can get. So in round 4 we've got the draft power-up, we've got the feather power-up and the aero power-up, and now it'll be really interesting to see how riders and teams use those power-ups, because I have to say they come in the way they've been spread out and where they come. You've got great opportunity, great chances to be able to use those, and I'm looking towards the final power-up. You know, at which point going into that finish will riders use it, depending on what they've got. So yeah, very curious to see.
Yeah, definitely. The power-ups, as you can see, they come at the country sprint and at the start-finish banner. And as you can see, a slightly higher percentage, but only a small one, of getting the aero power-up. And that will be, I would imagine, the power-up that everybody wants, especially given the very fast finish. The course itself, as you can see, 2 laps, totaling 36.8 Ks with that 300 metres of elevation. Nothing super steep, although the maximum pitches today on one of the longer drags do rear their head up to around 9%. And I do think there's plenty of opportunities for teams to be innovative, as Hannah was saying. Over the last couple of seasons of the ZRL and also the Zwift Grand Prix, we've seen increasingly different styles of racing, far less bunch sprints regardless of the course, teams willing to take risks, willing to play their cards differently, willing to work as a unit as well. Although this is a traditional scratch race, first rider across the line wins, it is of course a team event. Everybody trying to accrue as many points as they can. First 80 riders, so everybody in the field, should they finish the event, will score points. But basically, the more riders you can get towards the front end of the field, the more points you will accumulate. Now, somebody who's no stranger at all to racing on esports on the Zwift platform is Howell Davis of Wahoo Lacole. Howell, wonderful to have you alongside us. Last week we were picking the brains of Hayley Simmons. Great to have you here. This is a course you know very well, vastly experienced. What kind of racing should we be expecting on a course like this today?
This one's a really tough course if you want to do anything innovative, because it's a great course for sitting in a bunch, because the downhill start, the downhill finish, and the climbs are draftable. But if a team wants to roll the dice and attack, they're going to do that probably on the second climb, but they've then really got to go for it, and you need a decent sized group to stay away, because that downhill after the floor climb is going to be really tough to try and stay ahead. So you're going to get a big chase, you're going to get them pull back, maybe they'll try again on the second lap, but this is a tough course to get a good tactic that's going to work. It could just come down to a massive bunch finish.
And just a quick one as well, Hugh. We've seen over the last year or so, it's been constant really. Our in-game engineers have been just tweaking the pack dynamics. But it's harder than ever now, isn't it, to get pass riders? You can still pass riders, but we see on a course like this with the amount of speed that we're carrying, it is the sort of finish that could favour riders that might want to go a little bit early, mightn't it?
Well, the good thing about the GP series is you've only got 5 riders, so you're actually sacrificing someone if they're going to chase a breakaway. And it's not necessarily the breakaway that gets away, it's the pack that lets them go. So it's always worth that gamble. But yeah, that downhill finish, the power-ups are going to be hit, whichever one you got. You've got to hit them early and just hope that the speed carries you through, because that's a real lottery at the end.
And just a quick bit about the climbing today. We do have a couple of long drags, but they're nothing more than that, save for a couple of pitches. But we were talking before we came on air about the second of the drags, and that's the more consistent part of the grading, because the first climb is essentially a series of steps, but it's the second phase of the climb that could provide a bit of fertile ground to try and cause some splits, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's where you need to hit your feather power up if you're going to go. But it is a case of not going and giving everything on that climb, because you then got to keep the gap and stay away, because straight away you're then downhill, and the downhill is then, if you're on the front, you can super tap, and it's very little chance to get away unless you can work together with a few other riders. So if you establish that break at the top, you've got to save something, because you're in for a long day.
Yeah, well, it looks like this is a course that's going to suit everybody. It certainly suit the power riders, a little bit there for the climbers as well. But as you say, if you're patient and play things right in terms of power-ups, you could reap the rewards, because these climbs aren't the hardest we see on Zwift. You can sit in. Quite often you see riders using the power-ups to recover as well. So a lot to talk about. Howell, thank you very much indeed, mate. We will be speaking to you at numerous occasions. Both Hannah and I will be picking your brains just to try and untangle the tactics of
Van harte welkom. Vandaag gaan we naar de dames kijken in de Zwift Grand Prix ronde 4. We trekken naar Makuri, waar we aan Suki's Playground gaan, en we krijgen hier de voorstelling van de teams. Abu Synergy, een internationale ploeg bij de vrouwen. U ziet het aan de vlagjes. Momenteel staan we 14e. We zijn nieuw bij de vrouwen. De dames hadden weinig tot geen ervaring op dit niveau, dus we mochten ook niet te veel verwachten, maar we zien wel alsmaar betere resultaten toch. De laatste keer toen we in Glasgow waren, deden ze het verre van slecht. We verwachten dus niet te veel, maar toch, ja, we hebben toch een beetje overlegd in hoeverre vandaag de scratch race moet aangepakt worden. We denken wel dat de dames het moeten kunnen van in de bunch te blijven, dus in het grote eerste gedeelte van deze damesteams. Maar we gaan dat dus zo meteen moeten zien. Mijn excuses dat het er een beetje anders aan toe gaat, maar we hadden wat PC-problemen en we hebben alles terug moeten herinstalleren en dat is nog niet helemaal in orde. Dus moest er hier of daar nog iets misgaan. Mijn excuses alvast op voorhand. We gaan proberen van toch alles goed te doen. Ik geef zo dadelijk het woord weer door aan YouTube, zodoende u kunt volgen. Zoals gezegd, vandaag een scratch race. En dat wil zeggen dat er enkel punten zijn aan de finish. Onderweg is er dus niets te rapen. 2 rondes gaan we afleggen van ongeveer 18 kilometer. Met telkens 1 klimmetje erin. De eerste maal dat we deze klim aanvatten, gaan we die met een verlengstuk doen. Dus dat wil zeggen dat we daar 2 klimmetjes na elkaar direct gaan pakken. De tweede maal dat we daar dan passeren, doen we enkel het eerste stuk. En is het dan in een dalende lijn naar de finish. Dus sprintberg af. Dat is ook altijd speciaal. We gaan dat dus zien. Dus als de dames, of enkele van onze dames in ieder geval, de eerste maal mee over die 2 klimmetjes komen, dan kunnen ze heel ver komen. Want dan ga je sowieso normaal gezien mee tot als je weer aan die klim komt. En die klim is dan op een 5-tal kilometer van de finish. Dus als je daar zit, ben je bijna daar. Ik geef ondertussen het woord weer even door en ik kom straks waarschijnlijk nog eventjes bij jullie terug. Veel kijkplezier.
in 10th position, heading into round 4, is next. And again, another very strong team, potentially a day for Maria Holcroft on a course like this, augmented by Marissa Bowes, Dori Buchenthal, Morgan Cabot, and Heather Shanks. Let's go on to page number 3.
Let's have a look. Well, Primoz Racing Without Borders, new to the series, sitting in 16th position so far in the standings. 5 different riders, 5 different nationalities. Carolina Gustafsson, Claire Stringer-Phillips. They've got Murphy D'Amelio, Casey Northrop, and Christine Schneider. Then Rocket Corba Collective, 13th overall. They've got their sports director, Edward Green. Jules Cass, Rhiannon Denton, Ruth Duyen, Kate McCarthy, and Helen McCary. Saris are sitting in 5th overall with Jen Reel at the virtual wheel as the sports director. Now, I'm very curious to see how this team plays round 4 because Gabriela Guerrera has been very, very impressive. She's been a rider who has always been there at the key moments over the important parts of any course so far in the Grand Prix. So watch out for Gabriela Guerra, the Brazilian, and Team Castelli. They're 12th overall in the standings. Predominantly an Italian team, but with an international flavour in the likes of Emily Bottini, the Swiss rider, and Martinina Urjovic of Slovenia.
Okay, the final page of our 16 teams that will be starting at round 4 tonight. We kick off with Team Swedish Zwifters. As you can see, an entirely Swedish lineup, but some real experience there, especially with Marlene Bjarhed and Assa Fast Berglund. Toyota Elite, they're just currently inside the top 10, sitting a very respectable 7th, and again have a very versatile team there, especially, and again, I think their leader today, one would imagine, if she's on form, will be Charlotte Colclough. Also got Jenny Eck, Lucy Harris, Rebecca Richardson, and Natalie Stevens representing Scotland there. 2024, well, certainly knowing this team pretty well, they'll certainly be looking to change their 8th position and move up to date. I don't think they'll be super happy with that. They're a team with big ambition, and they have a good squad as well. Emily Emmerich, Catherine Fura, Marion Lawson, Miriam Peke. Watch out for Kristin Kulczynski on a...
Ondertussen gaan de dames zo dadelijk vertrekken, nog een 10-tal seconden. We moeten dus dat ze ook meteen gaan overschakelen. We starten meteen bergaf. Dus het zal van in het vertrek snel gaan. En dat wil zeggen dat je ook een beetje moet opletten, want ook bergaf is vaak gevaarlijk. Er vallen heel dikwijls al gaatjes in de afdalingen. Zie dat het ondertussen ook fout gaat bij Zwift. Eventjes overschakelen tot als het daar gefixt is. Ja, we zijn terug. Het probleem lag dus wel degelijk bij hen.
It was alarm bells ringing. And so I think for everybody else here in the race, knowing how versatile she is and the way in which she can race, this type of course I think really suits her well. And I think having seen the way that she's raced on the road with her road team of FDJ Suez in the World Tour and the way in which she's won races, she's not afraid to take that risk. And so I think that could really play into her benefit in round 4 on Suki's playground.
Yeah, definitely. She's got such a strong sprint. Also, she can lay the power down for a long, sustained period of time. And you talked about the impact she had on the road. Took out the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race on the road, one of her first races at the World Tour level. She really is an absolute phenomenon, and it is great to see her here amongst the pack on round 4 as we just head into the early stages of this circuit. Unsurprisingly, the bunch all together. And thank you very much indeed, everybody, for tuning in on YouTube tonight, wherever you are in the world. It does mean so much to us and the community, and of course to the riders here that are racing, entertaining us and trying to push their team as high as they can up in the rankings. And I say that because I can see a real wonderful flurry of ride-ons being dropped here. So if you haven't got your Zwift companion app open, please do, and give these riders, your favourites or not, to give them a ride on as we look at one of the most popular riders in esports, and that is Kristen Kulczynski, Hannah. She's looking comfortable, looking easy, and just sat midway through the pack in the early stages. Should be about 3 or 4 Ks before the road starts picking up.
It's a nice intro into the course, isn't it? Because you're ever so slightly descending for the first few hundred meters, kilometre or so, and then, as you just said, Matt, that's when the road, it flattens off, and then it'll start to climb again once you get to that around 5 kilometres into the course, and that's where you begin the climbing, and that's where the elevation starts to come. But yeah, Kristen Kulczynski, again, another rider who is one of the best esports riders in the world, and I think it's another rider, especially on this course, who could really shine, because I think we didn't quite see her at her best a couple of weeks ago when we were on Glasgow Crit Circuit, because of the nature of the course, it was very intense. You needed high power. It really favoured those, I would say, sprinters and those punchers who were able to have and make big high power efforts back to back. And so I think she really struggled through that round. But I think we're much more into her playground in Suki's playground.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, even when you have a bad experience out on the road or on Zwift, it's a learning curve. Every single experience on a bike in competition you learn from. And she's trying to build on that more all-round game. So a lot to take from even difficult moments in the sport. Now, as we're approaching this first series of climbs, a man that knows this course very well, let's bring in Howell. Howell, early stages of this race, riders just bedding in, as you can see from our little focus on Gamps there, midway through the bunch, just sitting in there, saving energy, but it won't be long before we hit this climb. Just describe what... Okay, I'm going to give you a scenario here, Howell. If you were the DS of Wahoo Lacole, what would you be telling your riders in these early stages, especially as we hit the first of these 2 climbs?
Well, these races, for anyone who's done them, are just the height of nerves. So your heart rate is quite high in the pen, much higher than a normal Zwift race. And you're just grateful that the fact that it's settled down. It's a nice bunch. It's just ticking along and you're saving energy. And the last thing you want here is anyone to be attacking and trying to break away. So I think everyone's just trying to keep calm at the moment, because they know that the next thing they've got to do is just put in a 2-minute effort, get a little bit of a breather, and then probably another 3-minute effort just to stop any breaks going. So if I was DS here, it's just everyone keeping calm, save the power up, just follow wheels, stay in the draft, but just be vigilant in case anyone else is trying to move off the front. But at the moment, it looks quite comfortable. Everyone's just chilling.
Just a quick one from you, as we're in these early stages. How much has, from your point of view, how the Zwift racing changed over the last few seasons? For me, as a commentator, as a fan, and I would imagine I'll be speaking, it's fair to say, from Hannah as well, it's just got more and more exciting, that little bit more unpredictable, far less bunch kicks. And with that tweaking of the dynamics, the game is constantly evolving, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And what you've noticed in the last 2 or 3 years is the stronger riders coming in, and a lot of pro riders taking up places in teams. And when they go, their mindset is going to be different. They know how long they can keep that effort going. So you know that if a break is going, realistically, that they might be away. And the strength of the riders just dictates how fast that pack is going now. So if you just miss a move or you're off the back, there's absolutely no chance of getting back on. I had one race where I did have a dropout coming down Volcano. I managed to sprint to get back on, but there's absolutely no chance of that now. Once you're out, you're out.
So, early stages, thanks very much indeed, Hal. We'll be checking in with you pretty regularly. Let's just see how they take this first climb. As you can see, as you said earlier on, this is the sort of race you need to be attentive, Hannah, but if you're smart, you can save a lot of energy. And nobody's wanting to break away here at all. Everybody knows how relatively easy it is to stay in this course. So right now, you get a sense, don't you, Hannah, that this is just riders, as Howell was saying, who are just relaxing because they know that a big effort is going to come up. And that climb, that first part of the climb, Hannah, as well, it's difficult to get into a rhythm because it comes up in steps. And it's the second part of the climb where you can actually bed into a more constant rhythm.
Zo meteen gaan we aan de klim beginnen. We zitten nu een beetje in de aanloopfase. Die gaat al heel lichtjes omhoog. Niet enorm, een tweetal procent. Je ziet hier Mea Welten op kop, een van onze rensters. Hopelijk doet ze niet te zot. Heeft nog niet zoveel zin voor het moment. Goed vooraan zitten is natuurlijk wel belangrijk, want zometeen als we aan die klim echt gaan beginnen, gaat er een rek op het peloton komen. En als er eenmaal een rek op zit, dan gaan er ook gaatjes vallen. En dan valt het peloton uit elkaar. Belangrijk dus om goed voorin te blijven. Momenteel lukt dat aardig als ik onze lichte blauwe truitjes zie. Ik zie toch een viertal rensters daar voorin. Ik kan het ook goed volgen in de positielijst rechts. Het celeste met donkerblauw. Nog een tweetal bochtjes en dan gaat het wat steiler bergop. Op zich is het eerste stukje beklimming niet echt lang, maar het is wel een puncherhelling.
A bit of a risk. Quite often fortune favours the blame, but also you can come crashing down in flames. It can be a complete disaster as well, but that is sport. Elite sport is like that. Sometimes you need to take a risk, but this is the sort of course that if you ride it smart, you can save energy. And this is where the team tactics side of things comes into play, doesn't it? What resources are you going to deploy? If you're a team, for example, Hannah, that doesn't have a super fast sprinter, but you've got more of a puncher, somebody who can get over the climbs, and then you've also got a good climber in the team who can't sprint, why not use that rider up to try and thin this field out as well? And we might see that coming into play. We're heading to the bottom of the first part of the climb, just up to the temple. And this is where we get these different gradients, these little pitches. And then once we drop off that little false flat, we then pick up again. It's a far more gradual gradient, just past that large claw. This is the right turn, a great aerial shot of the peloton as they head over this wooden bridge. And in a moment, the road starts to kick up. We've got a series of little hairpin bends as well. And I'm wondering if anybody's going to give it a little bit of a dig. I'm expecting here, Hannah, the field just to start to thin out a little bit.
You can already start to sense and see that there's several teams, several riders who are wanting to just try and nudge things on a little bit at the front, and you can just see with that added input of pace and the power that riders are already starting to be distanced, and you can see the gap start to open up, and it's now you can.
Ondertussen op de klim. Maar die is nu al halverwege. We komen nu in het dorp. Daar gaat het eventjes terug wat vlakker lopen. Eens dat we dan het dorpje uitgaan, gaat het een heel kort stukje bergop. Een 15-tal secondjes. Dan weer lichtjes bergaf en dan gaan we links en dan begint het tweede gedeelte.
CRLs or Zwift Grand Prix is teams attacking as a duo or even a trio. And I think that's a really interesting.
Momenteel gaat het nog goed. Nog geen grote afscheiding, dus dat is prima. Het tweede stukje is wel, hier gaan we nog niet links, maar het is de volgende. Hier aan het kruispuntje gaat het weer eventjes 3-4% bergop. En eens dat we daar dan over zijn, gaan we linksaf. En dan begint het tweede stuk. Hier. In het begin nog een beetje licht lopend, maar eens dat we dan een grote linkse bocht aanvatten, gaat het toch wat steiler worden. En het stopt pas wanneer dat we bovenaan in het dorp arriveren. Zo meteen zal er dan ook wel wat rek op komen. U ziet daar van achter al enkele dames die het wiel moeten laten. Ik schat dat het nu ongeveer nog een inspanning is van ongeveer een minuut. Maar u ziet de gaatjes vallen. Het zou leuk zijn moesten ze daar achteraan eens gaan kijken naar wie dat allemaal is.
Yeah, but they've got to really keep those matches dry at the moment because this climb is draftable. If you're pushing on the front, all you're doing is dragging everyone else with you. As you say, if you get a group of 3 from a team, just put in a sprint and make a jump, open up a gap, then it's a tactic that can work and put the others under pressure. But as it is at the moment, I think there's still in the middle of that pack is quite a comfortable ride. It's a few dropping off the back, but they should get back on as it levels out. So it's only a couple of 100 meters left of the climb, and it just levels off gradually. So
ondertussen bijna boven. We zien daar iemand van ons lossen, zo te zien. Ja, met de fluowielen, precies een drop-out. Het is echt dat de wielen, de neonwielen, ineens kleur verloren. Dat wil zeggen dat er niet meer getrapt werd. Dat kan duiden op een drop-out. Hier komen we in het dorp. Dan gaan we rechts en dan is het ergste achter de rug. En dan is het eigenlijk gewoon weer afwachten tot als we aan het eerste klimmetje terug arriveren. Er komt niks ernstigs niet meer, dus ik vermoed dat deze groep gewoon samen blijft tot de volgende klim. En zoals het er nu uitziet, zal het ook een sprintberg af worden met een grote groep, denk ik zo. We gaan het zo meteen zien.
See these power-ups being used to offer up a little bit of recovery. If you're struggling on a climb or you're near the back of the group, there are lots of draft power-ups being used from riders in 30th or 40th position just to make it easier so they can stay in the pack. And we don't often think about power-ups being used to save energy. We generally think they're used to deploy some sort of attack or to try and go clear.
Perfect opportunity for riders to try and have that recovery, that respite, and especially when you're using the draft power up, because it lasts for, it's one of the longer power-ups in which it lasts for 40 seconds, and so if you can use it at perhaps the highest speeds when you're on the flat or even on a slight descent, when you can use that to your advantage. You're not on a steep enough descent where you can be in the super tuck or you're not going fast enough. A wonderful opportunity just to save those matches, just to save that energy and really think about the next part of the course coming up. And as you said before, also important to make sure that these riders aren't holding back in using these power-ups, because you do have more opportunities to gain when you get to the arches and the finish line, and then of course that country sprint.
Yep, certainly is the case. We're just over the top of the climb here, just starting to drop down again. 27.6 k's to go. And this circuit is an interesting one. It's a figure of 8 circuit, so they actually do a loop back round and actually swing a right and drop down the descent back towards the pens. It's quite an unusual feel to this circuit as we look at Catherine Fura, and kicking out just under 300 watts there as they go over the bridge. She's just midway through the pack, just showing you and that the tempo is still pretty high. She's benefiting from the draft of the other riders in front of her, of course, but just by her body language there, she's having to press on a little bit, easing now, just under 200 watts. It's got a pretty neat pain cave as well there, but also looking pretty good. We saw, I was looking, keeping an eye on the heart rate data that we get through here. We have a special screen that shows us a lot of the riders, all their data, and on that climb there was riders riding about between 5 to 6 watts per kilo, just showing that the tempo was indeed very high, but now a little bit more of an opportunity to get a bit of recovery as we start to lose that elevation that they gained on the first part of the circuit.
Ondertussen heb ik gezien dat Amelia van Hoven nog in het pak zit. Emilia Welte zit ook nog in het pak. En Matot had ik ook nog gezien. Dus momenteel nog niet gezien is Laura Viampona, de vriendin van Lennart. En dan ook nog onze vijfde rijdster. Dat was denk ik Sarah Roach. Dus één van die twee had er strak die drop-out en is uit de wedstrijd. Hopelijk niet Laura, want Laura is met voorsprong onze snelste dame dat we hier hebben. Dus ik hoop haar eens in die top 10 te zien verschijnen, zodat we een verificatie hebben dat ze er nog bij is. Maar sowieso 3 vrouwen zie ik stevast in de top 10 verschijnen. Dus daar zijn we zeker van. Maar als Laura natuurlijk wat slim is, dan blijft ze een beetje in het zog. Tenzij we onze 2 dames kwijt zijn, maar dat is moeilijk te constateren.
36.8 kilometers, and so as a team, you've really got to think about which riders you bring in, which riders do you want for each specific round of the Zwift Grand Prix. If you think back to round 2, we had Alpe de Zwift, and so that was all of the pure climbers were brought in for each of the teams, and it was really won for those pure climbers. In round 4 here in Suki's playground, this is so open that I think the sprinters can make it over the climb. It's also fine for a good course for the climbers too, or perhaps those rouleurs, those puncheurs. And so it is going to be tactical. And I think it's going to be tactical all the way down to the finish because it is so open and it suits so many different types of riders that it could go one way or the other.
It certainly does feel that way so far. We haven't had, save for a couple of little moves off the front, and to me, they were little moves where riders were just trying to drag the field out rather than individuals attacking. This has been quite cagey so far. Good power, good pace on the climbs. 1 or 2 riders have been detached. Several have got back on. Let's bring in Howell. Howell, so far so good. Not quite completed a whole lap just yet. But what sort of vibes are you getting from this field so far? It does appear to me this could be a tactical one, and we could get a big series of attacks on the last couple of climbs. But as you say, the last couple of climbs still come with a fair distance to go. The way this course is configured means or suggests that this one could actually come down to a bunch sprint potentially.
Yeah, and I think as a rider in this, you're really quite happy if you're in that main group because you know you're scoring for the team. So
yeah,
every kilometre that ticks by, you're just conscious that you've scored, and the more riders that drop off, you score a little bit more and a bit more for your team. So I think everyone's quite happy at the moment, but there's opportunity to plan your move. Definitely, there's next hill coming up in about 3 or 4k, the one we just did, but only half of it. But then there is that downhill run into the finish and the next power up. But I think if you're going to go, you got to make your move on the second lap because it's too far to go this early with the downhill still to come. So it's status quo at the moment. Everyone just probably still a bit happy there, scoring points and just willing that no one else is going to move yet.
Yeah, definitely. And also maybe even having a look at the wonderful village Onsen. We went through the fishing village of this little bridge, over the little bridges that we saw. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of my favourite worlds actually on Zwift. There's something special for every world, but I'm a big fan of cherry blossoms. I love those cherry blossoms. I get a bit, I actually slow down to look at them a little bit more when I'm riding through here. If this world is on Zwift, I always choose it just to go for a bit of a bimble around. It's absolutely gorgeous. It really, really is. So out through the village Onsen, and dropping down this little descent here.
Look at that.
As we look, yeah, it is gorgeous. A great little bit of a nod from our producers there, giving me or giving us a lovely impression. This little climb coming the other way is actually pretty hard, but we're descending it now, as you can see, just through that little alleyway almost, back out into these beautiful open fields. 23.3 k's to go. Next time through the start finish, there will be another power up, but real tactical play here today. Nobody willing to go clear. Hannah, exactly for the reasons that Hal has explained. There's too much benefit from sitting in. A few riders have been dropped, but it appears that everybody is waiting for this final lap and potentially expecting those attacks to come. So just waiting and girding themselves for that real assault to come in the next 6 or 7 Ks.
We might not have seen any big stinging attacks on this first lap, this first opening lap, but I certainly...
En we zien dan toch nu ook Laura in de positielijst. Dus dat is met zekerheid dat we 4 dames er nog bij hebben. Dan zijn we enkel Sarah Roach kwijt. Ondertussen zitten we weer in de afdaling, die dat we ook strak na de start hebben gedaan. We gaan dus langzaam maar zeker voor de tweede maal op weg naar het klimmetje. Deze wedstrijd zal dan ook vrij snel gereden zijn. We zijn bijna halfweg nu. So far so good. Weer een stapje omhoog. met onze dames. Nu hopen op een goede eindsprint van hen. En een top 10 plek zou een keer mooi zijn. Algemeen klassement.
Saris in her pain cave. And there might not be any attacks, but I can certainly say it's not easy out there. We've got a fast pace.
No, definitely not. Even we've had quite a few picture-in-pictures from riders sat midway through the group, getting the benefit of that draft, sitting in essentially that vortex that's created at the centre of the peloton. And now I'm going to go rogue here, Hannah, and actually see if our producers can turn on a little bit of the pack dynamics for us, just to show us that draft cone. Always intriguing to see, just to give viewers at home a real visual impression of where is the easiest place to sit. That again, that has been tweaked a little bit over the last couple of seasons, just to make it that little bit more realistic. And with every season of racing that we get, there's a lot of back and to some feedback from riders, from teams, from managers, the engineers, just trying to constantly tweak the dynamics. And actually on that very point, as we almost approach, you've got about 3 or 4 Ks to go to the halfway point. Let's bring in Howell again. What are your thoughts on the development of the pack dynamics, and how important do you think it is that that's constantly tweaked with? Because there's always a lot of talk in the community about how sticky often the air is and what it's like to sit on a wheel, coming into sprints, etc. It's a real important part of the way that Zwift racing is played out, isn't it?
Yeah. All you got to do is look back a few years at some of the big bunch races we used to do, and if you can see any streams that are 18 months to 2 years old and see just how much movement there was in the pack. Visually, it was very difficult to ride. But now it's always trying to favour real world racing and allow breakaways to go. But you find yourself sitting at the back thinking that's the best place to be, but then all of a sudden the group's gone away from you. So you've got to be much more vigilant now. And sitting in the middle of the group just gives you that option of seeing an attack go rather than just getting dropped at the back. But it keeps changing as the courses change and the riders get stronger, the bikes develop as well, and you have the gravel and mountain bike, and just the way it keeps evolving just keeps you on your toes and experiencing it through races. But it is developing better and better every time, and visually it's so much easier to ride. But yeah, you still got to be strong to get a breakaway. It's not making it any easier.
Oh, no, the physical side remains the same. As you say, you've just got to think about the way that you apply your power. Think a little bit more strategically. We did. Thank you very much indeed to our producers for giving us an indication there that the cone, where it is, that's in the red areas, that's where it's easiest to sit. It's interesting to watch it when we've just got a couple of riders out in front as well, how important it is to try and get as close to the wheel in front as you can. 20 Ks to go now. We're heading on to the first part of this climb as we look at Gabriela Guerra out of the saddle, the Brazilian. Look, 400 watts, 450 watts and a lot of power-ups being dropped here.
Voor de tweede maal zitten we op de klim. De eerste echte aanval ook dat we zien. Een voer. Dit zal ervoor zorgen dat het peloton gerokken gaat worden. En er gaan weer gaatjes vallen.
Catherine Fura, just the effort that is being put into this attack, and this was, I think, a pre-planned attack. She had a teammate just behind her on the wheel. There's Christian Kulczynski, and the gap starting to open up. Lou Bates is up there for Coalition Alpha, as is Katie Hill of Ionian, and everyone, you can feel that tension. That elastic has snapped. You can feel that teams and riders have been holding back, and now we've got 2 distinctive groups. Let's have a little replay and have a little look at this big attack. She attacked from first wheel, Fura, and look at the effort out of the saddle, opening things up straight away on that first hairpin as we'd gone over that wooden bridge. But now we're going to have 2 distinct groups that are starting to form, and this is what I was saying. You're holding yourself back on that first lap, and now I think we're going to see a very, very different style and look to the second lap here in Suki's playground.
Yeah, some big gaps are opening up now. A lot of power ups being dropped. Mary Wilkinson from Coalition Alpha just up there, has got a teammate with her as well. It's still Fura going clear. As we have a little look at the peloton again, just dropping over the top of this climb. And this is this fast approach through into the finish. You can just see riders here using the aero power up. That's the one you want. If you are thinking about going for a sprint, this is the power up that you want. So a lot of riders dropping them, because through the finishing line, that's where we will get another set.
Ondertussen zitten we in de afdaling en u ziet dat de groep in twee gebroken is. Nog niet zo extreem ver. Al onze dames zitten in het tweede gedeelte. Dus het is nu eventjes hopen dat het peloton terug samenvouwt. Blijft hier nog eventjes bergaf gaan. Hopelijk valt het dan eventjes stil. En dan is het een moment voor aan te sluiten.
For the second lap, Hannah.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And I was just taking a look down at some of the riders who were actually caught out on that second split. Natalie Stevenson, the Scottish rider, was caught.
Dit was dus ook de eerste ronde dat we hebben afgelegd. We gaan nu nogmaals hetzelfde doen.
Attack, seeing the groups split in half, and riders and teams having to make that big effort to try and get themselves back into contention. As we see, the group has swelled in numbers, but very interesting. And now it's already like that gauntlet's been thrown down. We know that 2024 really want to take on this race and be attacking and be aggressive.
Yeah, definitely. We also know there's, like you say, a lot of the teams will be looking to the other squads. Everybody will have a plan coming into this race. Let's bring in Howell again. Howell, how informed, how much did that little move by 2024 of Virginia Brulutz, what did that actually tell us about this race so far? They're the first team to properly go on the offensive. There was a real distinct split of some of the true favourites that would suit a course like this. But what information does that give you about how the rest of this race may actually pan out? 17 Ks to go.
Looked like the rest of the teams were just happy to let that happen and then just chase, because once they had that split coming down towards the finish, it just needed 2 or 3 teams. It needed an alliance to really push that, to spread the field out and perhaps make those 2 distinct groups. But as it was, no one really wanted to push that, and they all came back together. So it's a very difficult thing for one team to do when you've got 5 riders, because then you're sacrificing your team for the race, and you need 3 or 4 teams to really push that on. And at the moment, I think it's just a bit more status quo, but now they've let a rider go, and I think this one is going to be a bit more decisive.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Howell. It is indeed. Kristen Kolczynski, she's opened up a lead of just 3 seconds. It's Stephanie Sidlick trying to get across the gap for Coalition Alpha. And again, a little bit of counterintuitive thinking here. Normally, Hannah, we'd see Kristen Kolczynski use the gradient. The gradient is her friend. She loves the climbs, but great to see her attacking. A little bit of a counterintuitive, gone against the grain and attacked on the flat section. And I don't think everybody else would have expected a move like that with such a long way still to go. But she's got a 4 seconds lead. They need to start getting a little bit organised, because once she gets into TT mode, she poses a big threat.
A huge threat, and one rider that everybody knows is incredibly strong. She's able to sustain this type of effort until the finish now. And so at 4 seconds, you can see the flurry of pink jerseys up towards the front of Coalition Alpha, who can sense that danger, likewise with Wahoo Locol. And I think this is also something that we've seen a lot of, and particularly in Zwift esports, of riders attacking on the descent and using that as a different place to make an attack and to try and get away from the main pack, as opposed to doing it what we know on road racing, for example, IRL, attacking on a climb to try and get away or to get a little bit of distance over the group, but using that descent in quite a conventional way.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good move. She's still clear. So Christian Kolczynski, a real character. It's wonderful over the last few years. We've seen these characters emerge from esports. It really is a fantastic scene. So much strength in depth now, as Hal was talking about earlier on. There's the quality of the fields from year on year, just getting better and better. And they all come through from the community. Over 2,000 teams will be racing in the Zwift Racing League on Tuesday. And they will have their eyes firmly fixed on this. Their aspirations, perhaps for some teams, to eye racing in the elite category in coming seasons, and that's what this is all about. But with just under 15Ks to go, this is some move by Krystian Kulczynski. The lead was hovering at between 3 and 4 seconds. Hannah, she has now stretched things out. She's just hovering at around 5.5 watts a kilo, and she's eked out this lead, just chipping away gently. And look at the shape of the pack behind. It looks as if they certainly aren't letting her go. A lot of tarmac or virtual tarmac still to go in this race, but Kulczynski is now moving clear. She's in full time trial mode. We know how strong she is. She's gone away on the flat. This is intriguing.
Very intriguing, and she's got herself into the rhythm, and the pack behind, they're not hanging around either. They're trying to bring her back. We're looking at around sort of 4 watts per kilogram, and there's some riders who, you take a look at Roos Duhin, the rider from Rocco Corba Collective, for example, and the heart rate is high. They know that, and this is not easy to be even in this pack right now. 62 riders with one off the front are in this pack here as Kulczynski takes that right-hand turn. 11 seconds now, and she's only building on that lead. At some point, teams, what do? Do they want to be the rider, that team that sacrificed their rider to bring back one rider from 2024 Virginia's Blue Ridge? Or can they say, right, well, we'll sacrifice one rider out towards the front and out on the front. We lose out on the big points for the first place position. But do we now start to look at ensuring we've got as many riders within our team as possible to collectively score highly together as a unit and finish with 5 riders within the top 15, for example?
Indeed, of course, there is a lot of kudos in relation to winning one of these rounds individually, especially the
Absolutely.
scratch races. There's no doubting about that. But this is a team competition. It is the Zwift Grand Prix. It's all about scoring as many points as you can. But the gap now for Krystian Kulczynski has gone up. It is a lofty, for Zwift racing, for esports, that is a lofty gap. 16.4 seconds. We've temporarily lost. It was back again. That's good news. Had a temporary blackout now. We've fired up our virtual generators and the pictures are back on the screen. And that was Krystian Kulczynski. She's just flown past that static camera. She now has 17 seconds, and I'm gazing at the watts per kilo. She's hovering between 5 and 6 watts a kilo, and the riders at the front of the bunch behind, 2 watts a kilo less. Nobody else has yet made any contribution to the pacemaking at the front. Let's bring in our resident expert, Howell Davis. Howell, since we last had you just 5 or 6 minutes ago, explaining what was going on, the circumstance out on the road has changed. Krystian Kulczynski now has a gap of 17 seconds, just under 13 Ks to go. What are your thoughts on this move by one of the most successful esports racers out there?
It's a brilliant move because it just asks the question of the other teams of who's going to sacrifice riders to chase. But Christine's probably now just working on what she can do for 20 minutes and just hovering around or just over that power, and she knows what she can hold to the finish. She's got about another 15, 16 minutes to hold, but any other teams that want to chase now, they've just got to think, do we stack the finish and get as many points as we can? Is it worth launching another attack? But any rider that now tries to chase is probably going to sacrifice themselves and get every other team into the points mix. So I think the majority of riders now just be sitting back and say, well, yeah, she's been brave, let her go. So good luck to her. This is a long way and it's going to be very painful, but she can do it.
Yep, this woman knows how to put herself. She knows how to turn herself inside out. We've seen that year after year, Hannah, haven't we? But what a move. I tell you what I was looking at her stats there. She gave herself about 20 seconds. She eased it off to about 3 watts a kilo. And as soon as the road kicked up, bang, back up to 7.5 watts a kilo, 6 watts a kilo now. And she's holding that lead. What we normally see on a climb, Hannah, is a rider capitulate and lose a dramatic amount of time very, very quickly. But she's sustained that lead, 16.9 seconds over that first part of the climb, and now on to the more even grade at the second part of this climb. What a ride this is so far by Kristen Kulczynski.
This is phenomenal. This is a superb ride by Crystal Kulczynski. And I think one thing that we've seen in the way in which she's ridden so far is she's given herself a handful of seconds just to reset, collect herself back together, and think about this final 11 kilometers here, and then think about the climb. And I think she's always had great guidance from the sports director Josh Lipka within 2024 Virginia's Blue Ridge, and within the riders that she's learned from too, and the way in which she, as a rider, uses her attributes and her strengths to her advantage on any course, really, and especially on a course like tonight. You and I was talking about it earlier on, Matt, before we came on, at how well this could suit Krista Kulczynski because of the way that she also likes to take a risk, it seems. She's also not afraid at laying it all down on the line. And for 2024, they are 8th overall in the series standings. So perhaps to Hexagon, Coalition Alpha, Ionian, they're thinking, well, 2024 don't actually pose as a big, big threat here.
Yeah, but like you say, you don't want an ordinarily let a rider like Kulczynski go. But you correctly have said this is a team competition, and 2024 are a little bit further down. As you said correctly, they are in 8th place, so don't really pose a threat. Should they score highly today, they certainly will move up, but they don't pose a threat to the teams that are leading. It is, of course, Coalition Alpha, the leading team heading into round 4, 10.8 Ks to go. The gap for Kulczynski on the second part of the climb has come down, and it's come down a fair amount. It's just over 7 seconds is the lead as Kulczynski continues to press on in front. But behind, under the impetus of the likes of Lou Bates, there's some real, unsurprisingly classy riders heading towards the front of this group. Lizzie Brooke is there as well for Great Britain for Wahoo Lacole. Paul is there too. Nordin Soderstrom from Movistar E-Team. They're really hitting it hard on the front, and unsurprisingly, well, there it is. Just in that brief conversation, wow, Kulczynski has been caught. I didn't expect it to be caught so quickly, but in the process, we've seen the bunch dramatically whittled down. We've only got about 28 riders left now in this front group, Hannah, with 10.5 kilometers to go to the finish.
That was a big, big surprise to see the gap close quite so quickly, because she had a substantial lead. And just by the pure pressure up towards the front of Coalition Alpha and Wahoo Lacole, that's been slashed. It's all back together. But as you say, only around 28, 29 riders who remain, 30 riders who remain in this front group now. So we've certainly started to lose sort of ammunition, I'd say, for certain teams, where some teams are only down to 1, 2 riders, as we now see Colombi, the Italian rider of Team Castelli, just edge towards the front here, as is Harris from Toyota Elite.
Yeah, Lizzie Harris just moving through to the front. Lou Bates there as well in that lovely purple kit of Coalition. And there again is the world champion, sat patiently, just lurking. We know how devastating a sprint she has. This is a finish that could suit her, and she's ridden a good race so far. Mary Wilkinson also in the pack. In fact, the leading team in this competition so far, Coalition Alpha.
U zag zo net een van onze rensters naar voren schieten. Dat is Emilia Welte. Dat is dan ook de enige renster die u hier in beeld ziet, die nog aanwezig is in deze ruime kopgroep van een 20, 25 rensters. Zij heeft het overleefd. Momenteel dus weer een rustig stuk. En dan gaan we nog eenmaal naar de eerste klim, naar de bochtige klim. En dan is het de afdaling naar de finish. Het gaat dus sprinten worden met deze ruime kopgroep. Hoogstens nog enkele rensters die er van tussen gaan vallen. We houden het in het oog wat Emilia kan doen in dit veld. Maar mooi toch dat ze hier nog bij zit.
Just raising the pace a little bit without going too deep to chase. So not one team took the emphasis to try and bring it all back. But now it's a case of who's got the most riders in this group and who can stack the finish or the highest. But as you say, it is a team event, and if a rider goes away that's not a threat on the overall GC for the teams, then they are likely to be let go. But I don't think that was a concerted chase. It was just the pure power of everyone trying to string the group out. So we're back to where we were, and it's going to look good for another attack on the next hill.
It certainly is. We have got 34 riders. 1 or 2 riders did get back in. Thank you very much indeed, Hal. We'll certainly check in with you at least on one more occasion before we head to the finish. 8.5 kilometres to go. And remember, that last little kicker comes, well, the top of the climb only comes with about 800 metres to go. So that all-important finish and positioning on the climb, absolutely crucial. It is a bit of a commentator's cliche when we say positioning is crucial, but it is particularly, especially given the dynamics, Hannah, that we've been talking about and the use of power-ups. Everybody in this group now will want the aero power-up for the finish, won't they?
They certainly will, and I think it's quite like what Hal was saying earlier on, that you don't want to be too far back because of the pack dynamics and the way that the draft works, especially going into that finale. Don't leave yourself with too much work to do, and this is very much those riders who are very savvy at knowing where they want to position themselves, and again making sure that they time using the power-up right. You don't want to go through the finish line and still have the power-up still going. Make sure that you've timed it right, or where you want to use whichever power-up of the 3 you do end up getting. And of course, for those who have got the aero power-up, then it's a huge benefit for them. But timing's everything. Timing and positioning.
Yep, it certainly is. And these riders will have practiced the kind of pace that you need to carry off the top of this climb. And also, what you don't want to do is use your power up too early or too late. And we've seen riders who are very good at dropping it perfectly. So the power up dropped just the right time and actually turns off just as they hit the finishing line. And we've seen some riders who are absolutely dialed. They really are. We generally get a flurry just at the right time. These riders know what they're doing. Very experienced. And we have a group, just to check in again, of 34 riders. Let's have a look at some of the names. Lewis Adias is there. Mary Wilkinson is in the mix. Stephanie Sidlick, McCarthy, Haas, Lou Bates, Harris, Lawson is there as well. Hag as well from Beast Mode Powerboat Road. So we've got a lot of very classy riders, as you would expect, as we're now looking at Emilia Velte in her pain cave, well lit there. Looking pretty smooth. 7 kilometers to go. This is where the nerves are going to start to jangle now. One more little climb, and then we have that drop down to the finish. So this is an opportunity for the riders who really put an effort in on that climb, especially for the likes of, in particular, Kristin Kulczynski, to think again. She's been reabsorbed by the peloton, but there's no doubt, despite the class of Kulczynski, that effort, 5 or 6 minutes out in front, maybe even a bit more, Hannah, is going to take a lot out of her. So she'll be pretty happy here just to rest up and see what she's got left for the finish.
She will be, and it will have taken a lot out of her, but now she can use this as an opportunity to get some respite, to start to think about, well, as a team, what can we do for all these final 6.5 kilometers? How can we use our strength within this front group? And I'm just taking a little look down. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 riders, at least that I can see, within this front group. So they've got Lawson. They've also got within this group, they've got, of course, Kulczynski. Just keeping Holdcroft is in the group too. So they're in a strong position. I think one of the strongest positions that Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 have been in any of the races in this Grand Prix.
Well, that must have been a predetermined plan. Riders of the class of Kulczynski, although sometimes you ride on instinct, as we were talking about, and we have repeated, this is a team event. And Blue Ridge 2024, we're going to want to move up a little bit. Maybe that move by Kulczynski was indeed, Hannah, a play to force the other teams to chase, to make it hard, as we've got a big attack by the rider from Saris No Pins. That's Guerra, the Brazilian. She's already put a big attack in, a 9.5 watts a kilo, and drops a draft power up at the same time. 5.5 Ks to go as we move through Onsen Village. A superb move by the rider Guerra here as she chips off the front. 5.5 Ks to go. This is one of the power-ups that you want. It's one of the longer power-ups as well. Just making that draft a little bit easier. And she's caught straight away by Hill from Ionian, who flies straight by her.
This is an exceptional performance by Guerra, but even more so from Hill to immediately sense the danger of Guerra, get onto the wheel, overtake, and now with a duo together, will they work together? Will they want to collaborate? Because when you take a look behind, Hexagon closing things down, there is Bates. It's the Norwegian of Hexagon in the orange jersey, Jerdhoven, who is the first to make that junction. There is the world champion Loes Arageest of Ionian. She's really keeping her powder dry in this race. She's not making any big attacks, big efforts. She's really holding herself back, very, very patient. And it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that, Matt. I mean, you know as well as everyone here how difficult it is to be patient, to not be the rider when you're feeling good to try and make moves. And as we just take a little look at the replay of Gabriela Guerra, drops that draft power up, big effort round this sweeping left-hand turn under the archways.
Yeah, that was a big attack. As you say, yeah, it's feathering that power and making sure you don't hit the front. Crucial. Keeping your powder dry is what it is all about, especially given the finish that we think is going to come now. Let's not rule out any attacks. That attack by Guerra was an illustration of the fact that this might not come down to a sprint. 4.1 Ks to go. Let's bring in, for the very last time, before we do our debrief, whatever the result is, it looks like there's another attack by Guerra. She's like a Duracell bunny today. Howell, what a race we've had so far. A pretty tactical one, but not without its moments. And Guerra, happy to go on the offensive for the third time today.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't just go straight to the second lap because it's all getting exciting. There's another opportunity here for an attack, but I really think that the teams and what's going through everyone's mind at the moment is it's all or nothing. If I go for an attack on this climb, I'm either going to come first or last in this group because it's still big enough and the downhill speed is going to be, excuse me, it's going to be very quick towards the end, especially you've got a 9-10% gradient going down, and that's where the power-ups are going to come in. So it's going to be a very, very fast finish. So if you get away now, you've got to stick. But otherwise, we're looking at a bunch finish.
Well, this is Gabriela Guerra next to Nathan Guerra there. Looking very good, looking so focused, happy to go on the offensive. She is absolutely flying. A new star of the sport is emerging, that is for sure, as another rider goes clear. Well, that was the moment. That was just a few moments ago. Gabriela Guerra went away for the third time. It is all back together. Colombe is on the front. Katie Hill moving through there for Ionian as well. A lot of ride-ons being dropped. Please do get involved. We've really enjoyed your company. So important that you tune in and watch these riders that have come through from the community. And now amongst their number, they have the world champion. They're racing at World Tour. It is absolutely fantastic. 2.8 kilometers to go. We have in at the front group 33 riders, including some of the best riders on the Zwift platform in the world. This is going to be a superb finish. 2.6 Ks to go. Hannah, what are your thoughts? Is it going to be a big bunch kick? Are we going to see a couple of riders go clear? There's certainly plenty of riders who want to try and do it, it appears.
There certainly is, and you can see and you can almost start to feel that it's starting to bubble. And at one point, I think there's going to be an eruption where riders who don't have that big explosive kick for a sprint will want to try something, and especially with the opportunity with the climb to be able to do so. However, just taking a little look down at the jerseys, there's at least 4 riders from Coalition Alpha within this front group, again with Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024. Swedish Swifters are there with a couple of riders, and then of course Ionian are in here with at least 4 riders, including the world champion. So interesting as we just start to see Toyota Elite with Lucy Harris start to roll off the front. There's Lou Bates immediately tracking this move. And there is the 2 orange jerseys of Hexagon with Sandrine Etienne, of course, who won atop of Alpe Zwift in round 2, just closing things down and bridging across.
Well, good move there by Sandrine Etienne. And what a win that was a few weeks ago now. We're on to the climb over that little wooden bridge. And now we've got this series of twisting, turning corkscrew hairpins that will take us through to the final kilometre. And a big acceleration. It's Scary Mary on the front now. Mary Wilkinson and Lou Bates move through to the front. Wilkinson leaning on the power as we look at the figure of Lou Bates. 2 riders from the Coalition Alpha, 1 and 2, and the gaps are starting to open up on this twisting climb before the plummet down into the finish at round 4 of the Zwift Grand Prix. We are on Suki's playground, and what a playground this is today. Bates, now Fura moves through to the front. What a finish this is going to be, Hannah.
This is going to be an absolute corker as they sweep their way through into 1.3 kilometers to go. The world champion is there. Bates is still there. There's Lizzie Brooke, who's moved up for Wahoo Call. Interesting move for Coalition Alpha to make an attack as a duo. And look at the damage that is being done with that big acceleration from Mary Wilkinson and Lou Bates. There's Guerrera sitting nice, and there is Sidlick. Stephanie Sidlick coming through with 1 kilometer to go.
Well, 1 kilometre to go now on round 4 of the Zwift Grand Prix. Suki's playground in Makuri Islands. We've got a reduced group of riders that are heading through to the finish. Now, after that final climb, we've only got about 23 riders, 22 riders in contention. A lot of the power-ups being used, and we've got a rider off the front. Lou Bates has gone clear from Coalition Alpha. 181 beats per minute. Her heart is racing. 450 watts. She's got 750 metres to go. The peloton are bearing down. This is going to be a tight finish. What can Bates do? Out of the saddle, low cadence, high torque, still over 400 watts as the road continues to drop down. In a couple of 100 meters, it'll start to flatten, and then the finish line will come into view. She also drops a power up. That's the power up that everybody wants as well. It's the aero one. Can she hold on? What a ride. She's got 2.5 seconds lead. The finish line coming into view now for Lou Bates from Great Britain. Coalition Alpha have had a superb season. It looks like Bates is going to take this one. It is indeed. Bates just holds on to take an absolutely superb win for Great Britain and Coalition Alpha. Soderstrom there in second for the Movistar E-Team, and Lizzie Brooke in third, subject to confirmation, of course. But what an absolutely scintillating, strong, bold, brave, powerful move by Lizzie Bates to take victory here in Makuri Islands. Wow, breathless stuff, and I could almost feel the pain there. But what a move by Bates. She had the power, but the timing was consummate, wasn't it?
It was also the way in which Lou Bates and Mary Wilkinson, as a duo, made the attack on the early slopes of that climb. And so they really did some damage to the group that they were in. That immediately started to form a real selection. And then to be able to hold back once you had around 12, 15 riders within that group, and then at the right moment make a big attack, big power. It was brave to go at that point. And the way in which she used her power up too on one of the steepest parts of that descent into the run into the finish. Superb stuff. Brave, bold, powerful. And you could see the way, and I love the way we saw her picture in picture of the effort that it took. Low cadence, the way in which she was churning over that gear with such high power. Incredible. Great performance from Coalition Alpha.
Yep, Coalition Alpha having a great season so far, aren't they? I think we've got the replay ready. Hannah, you just described the final moments of this race. A lot happened on the climb. Coalition Alpha dominated. Riders had to go very deep prior to the sprint. So the way that we saw this unfold was a real long, sustained effort rather than that real last 250-meter kick. So it was a real different sort of sprint. But Lou Bates, about to go on the offensive now, just towards the top. There's that picture in picture. There's that cadence we were talking about. Wow, what a ride it was. So talk us through what would have been a very painful last few 100 meters for Lou Bates.
She went into the bottom of the climb right up towards the front, and so she made sure that she didn't give herself a lot of work to do into that final sort of 1.3, 1.4 kilometers of racing. And just take a look at this effort. She's on the drops. She's leveraging everything out of herself and made sure that she went all the way to the finish line. This was the moment where she made that big effort to try and get away from the pack. And immediately she opened up a gap. And nobody else could react to this. They know that this was coming from Coalition Alpha. They knew that they would expect something into this finale, but just seeing the effort here of Lou Bates, and it was hovering at that 2-second marker, and we've seen before gaps can close very, very quickly when one rider who's out front really starts to tire, and then you see where the power-up is ejected or pressed, and it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, the timing of that power up, as you said, she got the momentum on that downhill section, but rather than make the mistake potentially of using the power up on the downhill, saved it for when she was tiring a little bit, excuse me. But no, everything there, absolute perfection. Nailed the win there, but look at what that took out of her, and look at what that means to her as well. Fortune favours the brave, but you can't just have fortune. You need to have done your preparation. You need to have thought about exactly what you've done. We'll get confirmation of the results as riders still roll through, but let's bring in Howell Davis. Howell, well, an interesting race. Let's be honest, it was quite a slow burn. I wouldn't say it was a negative first lap, but it was quite a furtive one, wasn't it? Everybody checking each other out, bedding in because of the longer distance. But fast forward to that finish, she just did everything right, Lou Bates. It was that perfect combination, wasn't it, of timing, deploying the power up, and actually that momentum that she gained by going just before the crown of the climb.
I think people are not going to realise just how hard that is to do, because you've just done a pretty much max effort on the climb, and then you get a few seconds to breathe and then go again, and it's doing everything that no one expected. And to attack on that flat bit and hold off the pack, because the pack's moving so quickly downhill, and the effort needed to keep the pack away is phenomenal. So it's probably worth double what anyone thinks. Yes, it was an incredible win, but don't underestimate just how hard that would have been to hold the pack off there.
Do you think what we saw there was, again, you've got to make a call on the road, but do you think the way that we saw Coalition Alpha ride that climb, especially the use of Mary Wilkinson to make things hard, to thin things out, as you say, there's making an effort like that when you're fresh, but off the back of already riding, of going deep, that makes it even more special, doesn't it? But it did take other riders from the team to get involved, to put everybody else on the back foot, and everybody else, with that red mist descending, and to try and punch through that, it just shows the kind of elevated level that Lou Bates is on.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great team move, because it's just strung everyone out, and then they're all forced to chase. So they make their effort to chase, and whilst they're getting their breath back, it's a predetermined move to go again. And the non-stop attacking is what broke the elastic and got her away. But yeah, brilliant team win.
What about your thoughts, Hannah, on that one? It was an interesting race, wasn't it? Okay, an intriguing opening lap, but then there were the fireworks, weren't there? And great attacking as well, but by several riders to try and mix things up, especially from Gabriela Aguera as well.
It certainly was, and I think what we saw was everybody was being patient, and as you said to Howell, it was a slow burn on that first lap, but it was one in which it was the tactical reason to make sure that they didn't make any unnecessary attacks. They all knew that it would all come on that second lap, and I have to say, for Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024, the way in which they've ridden tonight, I think one of the best performances they've had in this Zwift Grand Prix series this season so far, because they had so many riders, first of all, up there in the finish. They were challenging for second and third place behind Lou Bates, but also to be up there with Crystal Kuczynski, the big bold move, to be away for 6.5 minutes at that point, and posed a real threat for the individual win on the night. But it was certainly an exciting final or second lap, I should say, and then also into that final 2 kilometers where we thought, well, we could be coming down to a big bunch sprint here, and for Lou Bates and Coalition Alpha to take it on, and then still having something. I mean, Mary Wilkinson was still up there in the top 10 by the seams of things, waiting on official confirmation on the top 10, but it seemed as though she was up there despite that effort on the climb, like Lou Bates, to finish highly too.
Indeed. Well, we will get confirmation in just a few moments' time, but provisionally, I'm just looking at the first 40 riders on my screen. It does look as if Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024 are going to have had Hannah, as you were alluding to, just using our very rudimentary, crude mathematics that my brain allows me to come up with, because it's not my strongest subject at school. Is the fact that Virginia Blue Ridge have had a very good night. 4 riders in the top 26, anyway, as you said, 4th, 5th, and 9th. Subject to confirmation, of course. We will get the results through to you as soon as our producers and engineers have sorted out and have had a flick through the digital abacus. A lot of things to work out, but another strong night, of course, by Coalition Alpha. This one could be close, but definitely a couple of teams could be seeing themselves moving up the rankings and making the second half of this season's Zwift Grand Prix very, very interesting indeed. And for some teams, as we've seen in the past, and it can take a couple of rounds for them to get really bedded in, can't it?
It certainly can, and for some riders, they're coming off the back of a road season, so they came into perhaps the early rounds of this Zwift Grand Prix, having had a little bit of a break before they go into the Zwift racing season here in the winter, and then of course starting a lot of the winter training. But for others, it's also finding your feet. We've got a lot of riders and also teams who are racing in this Zwift Grand Prix for the very first time, and so it takes time. A couple of rounds, a couple of weeks to settle in, embed yourself into the racing. And I think what we're seeing now is also as the courses and the races change, more and more riders start to fare up towards the front. And just now looking down that top 40, Wahoo Lacole, they had all 5 riders in the top 30 riders. So a very, very strong showing by Wahoo Lacole this evening.
Indeed. Well, Coalition Alpha, first placed, 6th place, 15th place as well. Again, I'm not going to venture into that the territory of me actually committing to telling you what exactly the score is. We wait with a bated breath. It was certainly a spectacular finale, and great that we got that replay of the effort made by Lou Bates, that the deployment of the power up just at that perfect time as well. I mean, that really was a difficult one, and they got it absolutely right. And also, just looking back down through the riders who finished just outside of the podium spots, what a ride again by Kristen Kulczynski. Really starting to come to the boil after that difficult ride she had the other week. To have that spell off the front where she gained that lead of 17 seconds, to get back, recover, reconfigure, and go again, she's got to be pretty happy with more than a solid 4th place. And of course, what looks to be a best performance of this year's season so far for her squad too. So she's going to be look back and be pretty pleased with that. An aggressive race, but her powers of recovery, well, what an illustration. 4th on the day with a difficult finish after that big breakaway too.
It's incredible, and it shows that she's in very, very good form, Matt, that she was able to make such an effort for such a long time on her own and then still come back strong and finish strongly. As I said before, Krista Kulczynski and her teammate Ehrlich were vying for 2nd and 3rd place. It was only right on the line that Söderstrom and Lizzie Brooke pipped them for the remaining podium places of 2nd and 3rd. But for 4th and 5th on the night for Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024, a great showing. And for Kulczynski, as I say, I think it just shows that the form is there. And once again, that each course isn't going to suit every single rider week in, week out. And so she played to her strengths. It might have been a bad round a couple of weeks ago, but
Het blijft wederom maar duren voordat we iets van uitslag zien. Laat staan de ploegenstand. Bij deze gaan we dan ook langzaam maar zeker afsluiten. Bedankt voor het kijken. Volgende week zijn we er weer op donderdag met de mannen voor ronde 5. Dan trekken we naar Schotland. Ze zijn er nu toch met de uitslag 12e plek. Dat is zeker niet slecht. Top 10 had leuk geweest, maar met enkel Emilia in de kopgroep van ongeveer 35 dames was die te verwachten. Maar 12e is goed. Het is weer een leerproces. Zoals gezegd gaan we volgende week met onze jongens naar Schotland voor de Mukkeljen. Dat is een puntenwedstrijd waar we iets gaan proberen recht te zetten van onze iets mindere prestatie vorige week in de ploegentijdrit. Zodoende dat onze tegenstanders niet te veel beginnen denken dat we over onze top zijn. Laat ons zeggen dat de ploegentijdrit onze uitschuiver van het seizoen was. Volgende week zijn we dus terug op volle sterkte met Lennart Teugels er ook bij. En dan gaan we weer volop voor die eerste plek en proberen onze voorsprong die nu wat gekrompen is terug uit te breiden. Ik zie jullie graag terug volgende week donderdag. Dat zal ook omstreeks 8 uur zijn. Bedankt voor het kijken en tot dan. Bye bye.
Hexagon now in second place with 82 points. Ionian there, solid in third with 76. Wahoo Lacole now in fourth with 64. But a big jump up for Virginia's Blue Ridge 2024. From 8th to 5th, they'll be very happy with that move up. 6th place, Toyota Elite in 50. Sarah Snowpin's there in 7th with 48. 2 points clear of Team Swedish, which is currently in position. Let's have a look at the other side of the rankings. Mobisar E-Team dropped down today, 9th place for them. 10th. Next, Esports, powered by Shaw in 11th, 12th, 13th spot at the moment. 14th, 15th, Rocket Pool. Esports Fam there in 16th place, yet to score. So that is the situation. It's been a fantastic race. I've certainly enjoyed it. Let's for the very last time bring on Howell again. Howell, final thoughts on the day's racing? I certainly enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed commentating alongside. It was great to get your insights.
With that second lap made as painful to watch as it is to ride, but yeah, it was phenomenal riding tonight. Good to see